The Whispering Glade was not like other places. Oh no, not at all. Here, the starlight didn't just twinkle, it sang. It didn't merely fall. It drifted down in shimmering flakes of luminescence, settling on the broad leaves of the moon-petal trees like powdered diamonds, collecting in the cups of the star lily blossoms as pools of liquid silver, and clinging to the fur of the slumbering glade mice in a gentle, warm glow. This was the star glow, the very breath of the glade, and it was Lyra's lullaby. Lyra lived in a small, cozy home woven from the sturdy, flexible branches of a willow whisper tree, its leaves a soft, mossy green, even in the deepest night. Her window, a clear pane of polished moonstone, offered a perfect view of the glade. From her bed, a nest of sweet-smelling fern and downy thistle fluff, she could watch the star-glow paint the forest in shades of pearlescent white and soft lavender. She could hear the contented hum of the lumina bees returning to their hives, heavy with stardew nectar, and the distant sleepy murmurs of the dream foxes curled in their burrows. Lyra was a creature of the glade, just as much as the moon moths that danced on the gentle night breezes, or the ancient, root-knotted trees that stood sentinel around her home. Her hair was the color of sun-bleached flax, woven with tiny sprigs of shimmering moss that caught the star glow, and her eyes, wide and curious, were the deep, calm green of a forest pool at dusk. She was small for her 10 years, but her spirit was as boundless as the starlit sky above. Her constant companion was Pip, a glade sprite, no bigger than her thumb. Pip had wings like a dragonfly's, iridescent and translucent, and his tiny body glowed with a soft, steady light, a miniature beacon in the glade's gentle darkness. He lived in the pocket of Lyra's tunic during the day, occasionally peeking out with bright, inquisitive eyes, and at night he would flit around her room, a silent guardian, sometimes landing on her nose with the lightest touch of his tiny feet, making her giggle even in her sleep. One particular night, as the star glow was falling in especially thick, slow flakes, Lyra lay awake, watching. Pip, usually restless, was perched on her forehead, his light pulsing faintly. There was a subtle change in the air, a whisper that wasn't carried by the wind. It was a sound, or perhaps a feeling, deep and resonant, like the earth itself was humming a quiet, ancient tune. Lyra had noticed it before, a faint thrumming beneath the usual symphony of the glade, but tonight it was stronger. It was She. Lyra didn't know what Wanthi was. No one in the glade seemed to speak of it, or perhaps no one else heard it quite the way she did. It wasn't a word, not really. It was just safe. A presence. A growing vibration that seemed to emanate from somewhere deep within the forest, beyond the familiar paths, past the whispering falls, and into the older, quieter parts of the glade where even the oldest glade dwellers rarely ventured. Tonight, Aiden felt different. It wasn't just a hum, it was a gentle pull, a soft tug at her spirit, like a silken thread unwinding from her heart and stretching out into the shimmering night. Pip, sensing her wakefulness, twitched his antenna. "Dai," he chirped, a tiny question in his voice. "It's Pip," Lyra whispered, her voice barely audible above the gentle rustling of the willow whisper's leaves. "It's louder tonight." "Ah." Pip tilted his head, his luminous eyes scanning the room, then the window. His light pulsed a little faster. He felt it too then. His small antennae quivered, pointing vaguely towards the deeper woods. Lyra slipped out of her bed, her bare feet making no sound on the mossy floor. She pulled on her tunic, already embroidered with the delicate patterns of star lilies and moon petals, and picked up her lantern, a hollowed-out gourd containing a captured glade firefly, its light a steady golden glow. Pip tipped into her pocket, leaving a faint trail of light behind him. She pushed open her door, a simple woven panel of vines and leaves. The star glow outside was breathtaking, thick and heavy, like walking through a dream. The air was cool and sweet, smelling of damp earth, blooming night flowers, and the faint metallic tang of the stardew. Lyra took a deep breath, letting the glade fill her senses. Her usual path led to the elder oak, a colossal tree where the glade dwellers gathered for stories and communal meals. But tonight, Ithay was pulling her in a different direction, towards the west, where the trees grew taller and closer, their branches interwoven like ancient arms, creating a shadowy canopy even the star-glow struggled to pierce. "Are we going there, Lyra?" Pip's voice, a tiny high-pitched chime, resonated in her mind. He didn't speak in human words, but Lyra understood his feelings and intentions perfectly. "I think so, Pip," she replied, her own thoughts a quiet conversation with him. "It feels like it wants me to." The path grew narrower, the familiar glade moss underfoot giving way to rougher earth and gnarled roots. The moon-petal trees thinned, replaced by ancient, nameless evergreens whose needles were long and dark, rustling with a deeper, more mysterious whisper. The star glow here was muted, filtered through the dense foliage, creating pockets of deep shadow and pools of faint silver light. Lyra knew this part of the glade was sometimes called the Whisper Dark. It wasn't dangerous, not truly. No creature of the glade would ever intentionally harm another. But it was old, and full of forgotten things, and sometimes the silence here could be heavier than a mountain. But tonight, there was no silence. There was Ein Thee, a low continuous hum that Lyra felt in her bones, a gentle vibration that seemed to resonate with the very core of her being. It was like the earth was singing a deep bass note, and she was a tiny instrument tuned to its frequency. She followed the feeling, her lantern casting dancing shadows on the ancient tree trunks. Occasionally a pair of shy, luminous eyes would blink at her from the undergrowth, a dream rabbit perhaps, or a curious glade owl. They seemed to watch her with a knowing stillness, their presence a quiet acknowledgement of her unusual journey. As she ventured deeper, Lyra began to notice something else. Interspersed among the dark evergreens were patches of a unique flora she hadn't seen near her home. These were the starflowers. They usually bloomed only in the deepest parts of the glade, and then only under specific rare celestial alignments. But here, they were everywhere. The starflowers were unlike any other bloom. Their petals were not made of soft flesh, but of solidified starglow, shimmering with an inner light that pulsed gently, mimicking the beat of a tiny heart. They grew in clusters, their light combining to form ethereal constellations on the forest floor, each one humming softly with Wythe's deep vibration. Lyra knelt beside a particularly vibrant cluster. The starflowers felt cool to the touch, and when she brought her ear close, she could hear the tiny individual hums, like a choir of miniature bells. Each petal had intricate patterns etched into its surface, like miniature star charts, spiraling outwards from a central glowing core. "They're so bright, Pip," Lyra whispered, mesmerized. Pip tipped out of her pocket and landed on one of the glowing petals, his own light merging with its brilliance. He chirped excitedly, clearly delighted by the warmth and energy emanating from the flower. It was then that Lyra saw it. Not just the starflowers, but a faint, almost invisible pathway weaving through them. A path of heightened star glow, as if the very light itself was being drawn along a specific current. It was the way Wythe was pulling her. She rose and continued her journey, now guided not just by the hum, but by this shimmering ephemeral trail. The Whisper Dark began to lighten, not with the familiar star glow from above, but with a diffuse internal luminescence that seemed to emanate from the ground itself. The trees began to thin again, but this time they didn't give way to open sky. Instead, they opened into a clearing unlike anything Lyra had ever seen. This was the sunken star grove. It wasn't really sunken, not in the way a ship might sink. Rather, the ground here dipped gently, forming a wide, bowl-shaped amphitheater. But what truly gave it its name was the sky above. Here the canopy of trees was incomplete, forming a jagged star-shaped opening directly overhead. Through this opening, the starglow fell not in flakes, but in thick, luminous streams, like liquid starlight pouring from a celestial jug. And in the very center of the sunken star grove, where the starglow converged, stood a colossal, ancient tree. It was unlike any tree Lyra had ever encountered. Its bark was not brown or green, but a swirling tapestry of deep indigo and shimmering silver, as if it had absorbed centuries of starlight into its very essence. Its branches, thick as Lyra's home, reached upwards towards the star-shaped opening, bare of leaves, but covered instead in thousands upon thousands of starflowers, blooming in such profusion that the entire tree glowed with an otherworldly light. This was no ordinary tree. This was the Heartwood, a legendary tree whispered about in the oldest glade tales, said to be the anchor of the glade's magic, a direct conduit to the stars themselves. Kai was strongest here, and the hum was no longer a gentle vibration. It was a profound, resonant chord that filled the air, the ground, and Lyra herself. It felt like the very heartbeat of the world, slow and powerful. The star glow pouring down from the sky pulsed in time with it, making the thousands of star flowers on the heartwood shimmer and glow with an intensity that made Lyra gasp. And then she saw it. At the base of the heartwood, nestled among the roots that spread out like ancient silvered veins, was a single, perfect starflower. But this one was different. It was larger than any other, its petals radiating with a brilliance that outshone even the glade firefly in her lantern. And from its center, instead of the usual star chart patterns, a single slender beam of pure, concentrated starlight shot upwards, straight into the star-shaped opening in the canopy, like a thread connecting the heartwood to the deepest reaches of the cosmos. As Lyra watched, the beam pulsed, and with each pulse, a tiny fragment of light detached from its tip and drifted downwards, not as a flake of star glow, but as a miniature, perfectly formed star, no bigger than her smallest fingernail. These tiny stars, glowing with a soft ethereal blue light, settled gently onto the roots of the heartwood, sinking into the bark and disappearing, leaving behind only a faint, lingering shimmer. This was what Ythi had been calling her to see. This was the source of the intensified hum, the reason for the profusion of starflowers. The heartwood wasn't just glowing, it was breathing starlight. Pip, who had flown to the topmost branch he could reach on a nearby starflower bush, was absolutely silent, his own light dimming in awe. Even his usual chittering had ceased. Lyra approached the giant starflower at the base of the heartwood, her heart thrumming in unison with Kati. The air around it felt thick with magic, warm and inviting. As she knelt, the light from the starflower enveloped her, making her feel as if she was part of the star glow itself. She reached out a hesitant hand, her fingers trembling slightly, and gently touched one of the luminous petals. It felt cool and smooth like polished crystal but alive. A jolt of energy, gentle and profound, passed through her, not shocking but deeply comforting, like a forgotten memory resurfacing. And as her fingers brushed the petal, the single beam of starlight shooting upwards from the flower pulsed once, more brightly than before, and a voice, not of words but of pure resonant feeling, echoed in her mind. It was the hum, translated into understanding. "And you have come." "No, can I me?" Lyra gasped, pulling her hand back slightly. The voice was ancient, vast, yet soft and welcoming. It was Ythi. Her heartwood grows dim. The star glow fades. The glade sleeps too deeply. Cassie? Lyra looked around at the shimmering magical grove, then back at the glowing starflower. "Fades," she whispered, her voice barely a breath. "But it's so bright here. This is but a momentary surge, little one. A final call. The true star glow, the one that nourishes all, weakens. A balance is askew. Can get on my casino. Done." Lyra felt a prickle of fear, quickly replaced by a surge of determination. She looked at Pip, who was now flying slowly around her head, his light pulsing with concern. "What can I do?" she asked, directing her thoughts to the glowing flower, to the heartwood, to Ythi. The starflower pulsed again, and the beam of starlight intensified. A vision, clear and vivid, bloomed in Lyra's mind. She saw a vast, shimmering landscape, far beyond the glade. She saw mountains of crystal, rivers of liquid light, and skies filled with constellations that danced and spun. And at the heart of it all, she saw a single brilliant star, radiating pure, untamed magic. But in the vision, that star was flickering, its light growing faint. The heart star, source of all starglow, weakens. Its light must be rekindled. And then, conscience. The vision faded, leaving Lyra with a profound sense of purpose. Rekindle the heart star? It sounded like a task for legends, for the ancient glade dwellers of old, not for a small girl like her. But the feeling in her heart, the gentle, insistent pull of Ythi, told her otherwise. This was her path. You are of the glade. You are of the starglow. You are the one who hears. Lyra looked at the heartwood, at the thousands of glowing starflowers, at the magnificent pulsing beam of starlight. The challenge was immense, the journey unknown. But the glade, her beloved home, was in need. And Yurthi had called her. She took a deep breath, the scent of starflowers and ancient magic filling her lungs. Her fingers, still tingling from the touch, curled into a small fist. "I will go," she whispered, her voice firm, resolute. "I will rekindle the heart star." The starflower at the base of the heartwood pulsed one last time, a warmth spreading through Lyra's body that settled deep in her chest. It was a feeling of ancient approval, of trust. "What a journey is long. When tea, it's tant pontent, auna he meet commander." The path is hidden, but the way will be shown. One, she. Lyra stood there for a long time, the star glow pouring over her, the hum of Guthi filling her very being. The sunken star grove was now fully awake, a beacon of magic in the quiet glade. Pip, still silent, came to rest on her shoulder, his tiny hand patting her cheek. The glade was changing. And Lyra, the small girl who heard Wasi, was about to embark on an adventure greater than any story ever told under the elder oak. The night, still shimmering with magic, waited for her first step. The night, still shimmering with magic, waited for her first step. Lyra took it. Her small slippered foot, accustomed to the soft glade earth, sank not into soil, but into a shimmering resilient pathway of pure star glow. It felt warm, like sun-warmed stone, yet yielded slightly, almost like a living thing, conforming to her soul. A soft chime, like a dozen tiny crystal bells, rippled through the air with her movement. Pip, sensing her hesitation, gave a gentle nudge to her ear, then hopped off her shoulder, landing on the luminous path beside her. He looked up, his bright eyes reflecting the myriad starlight, and then, with an almost imperceptible flick of his ear, he pointed deeper into what had once been the sunken star grove. The grove was sunken no more. Where before there had been a hollow, now stood a gentle rise, crowned with trees whose bark pulsed with a soft internal luminescence. Their leaves, once dark and indistinct, unfurled like miniature nebulae, each vein a tiny constellation, each surface shimmering with a dew of starlight. Flowers, previously unseen, bloomed in exquisite patterns, their petals like polished gemstones, radiating soft hues of violet, silver, and deepest indigo. The air itself tasted sweeter, clearer, filled with the scent of night-blooming jasmine and something else, something ancient and wild, like petrichor after a star shower. The hum of old Ithi was no longer just a distant vibration. It was the very breath of this place, a symphony of quiet power that resonated in Lyra's chest, a comforting thrum that seemed to align her own heartbeat with the pulse of the living grove. Pip scurried ahead a few steps, then paused, looking back, as if urging her forward. With each step Lyra took, the star-glow path seemed to bloom before her, illuminating the way. She walked past star moss that unfurled like velvet carpets, past tiny, glittering insects with wings like spun starlight, and through curtains of shimmering vines that tinkled with a sound like distant laughter. The trees whispered secrets she couldn't quite grasp, but understood instinctively, a sense of belonging settling over her like a warm cloak. As they neared the heart of the grove, the light intensified, drawing them towards a clearing where a single ancient tree stood. It was unlike any other tree she had seen, its trunk vast and gnarled, spiraling upwards like a cosmic vortex. Instead of leaves, its branches held what appeared to be thousands of miniature stars, each one a tiny perfect sphere of pure light, slowly rotating, casting a gentle kaleidoscopic glow across the clearing. This was the elder star tree, the heart of the sunken star grove, now fully awakened. At its base, nestled amongst roots that glowed with a deep azure light, was a basin of swirling liquid starlight. It pulsed with a steady rhythm, mirroring the hum of Kaitidante. As Lyra approached, drawn by an invisible thread, the surface of the liquid starlight began to ripple, and images coalesced within its depths. It wasn't a mirror, but a window. Lyra saw fleeting glimpses, a vast swirling galaxy, then a close-up of a shimmering pathway winding through a dense, impossibly green forest. She saw an ancient moss-covered stone, glowing faintly, and then a cascade of sparkling water that seemed to fall from the sky itself. Pip, perched on the edge of the basin, chittered softly, his tiny finger pointing into the swirling light. Suddenly, the images solidified. A map, woven from threads of starlight, unfolded across the surface of the basin. It showed the glade, now surrounded by a glowing aura, and then a distinct path leading out from it, through what looked like a dense, enchanted forest. Along this path, 3 distinct markers glowed: a leaf-like symbol, a spiral, and a musical note. Kai hummed a little louder within Lyra, a sense of gentle urgency. This was her path. This was the adventure. Pip, as if understanding her thoughts, climbed onto her shoulder again and gave her cheek an encouraging pat. With a deep breath, Lyra turned from the elder star tree. The path of star glow now extended beyond the grove, leading away from the glade into the wider night. It was an invitation, a promise. She stepped onto it, her heart thrumming with a mixture of awe and quiet determination. The glade, her home, seemed to shimmer behind her, a protective, loving embrace. The elder oak, though still silent, radiated a familiar comfort. But the hum of Wythe drew her forward, past the familiar boundaries of her world into the unknown. The starglow path led them out of the glade, and directly into the heart of the whispering woods. Lyra had often heard tales of this ancient forest, where trees spoke in rustles and breezes carried secrets, but she had never dared venture far beyond the glade's edge. Now, guided by the luminous path, she found herself enveloped by its magic. The trees here were impossibly tall, their branches interlacing high above to form a dense canopy that filtered the moonlight into dappled silver coins on the forest floor. But where the star-glow path lay, the ground beneath glowed with its own soft light, illuminating patches of velvety moss that pulsed with faint, bioluminescent patterns. Tiny bell-shaped flowers, translucent and shimmering, chimed softly as Lyra brushed past them, their scent a delicate blend of damp earth and sweet honeysuckle. The whispers began almost immediately. Not voices, not words, but a gentle, resonant murmur that seemed to flow from the very wood of the trees, carried on the soft breeze. It was a comforting sound, like 1,000 sleepy sighs, yet Lyra felt a prickle of anticipation. It was as if the forest itself was greeting her, acknowledging her journey. Pip, ever alert, twitched his ears, listening intently to the whispers. He pointed a tiny finger towards a particularly ancient-looking oak, its bark gnarled and silvered with age, its roots like great, slumbering serpents across the path. As they approached, the whispers around this tree seemed to coalesce, becoming clearer, more distinct, though still not actual words. It was a feeling, a sense of watching, of a knowing. Suddenly, from a hollow in the ancient oak, 2 luminous eyes, the color of moss after a spring rain, slowly opened. They blinked once, slowly, then focused on Lyra. A long, slender neck uncoiled from the hollow, followed by a body covered in shimmering, emerald scales, each one catching the starlight like a tiny jewel. It was a forest guardian, a creature Lyra had only heard of in the oldest tales, a sylvan serpent. Its head was crown-like, adorned with delicate antlers made of woven twigs and tiny, glowing fungi. Its gaze was ancient, wise, and incredibly gentle. It uncoiled fully, revealing a body longer than Lyra was tall, yet graceful and ethereal, seeming to float above the ground rather than slither. Its movements were accompanied by the soft rustle of leaves, as if the forest itself moved with it. "Welcome, Starchild," a voice resonated not from its mouth, but from the very air around it, a voice like rustling leaves and flowing water. "The hum has led you here. The glade has awoken, and the path of Lumina calls." Lyra, though startled, felt no fear. The sylvan serpent's presence was one of profound peace. You know about Oithi," she whispered, her voice barely audible amidst the forest's murmurs. The sylvan serpent lowered its head slightly, its luminous eyes fixed on hers. "We know of the song that weaves all things, the ancient pulse that binds light to shadow, life to stillness. We are the listeners, the keepers of the forest's memory. For generations, we have felt Oithi slumbering, a quiet sigh beneath the roots of the world. Now, Oithi sings." It gestured with its head towards the glowing map vision that still shimmered faintly in Lyra's mind, the one she'd seen in the Elder Startree's basin. "The first marker, the starleaf, guides you deeper into the whispering woods, to to the heart of the labyrinth of dreams. There, the weaver of whispers awaits. The labyrinth of dreams, Lyra repeated, a touch of apprehension in her voice. Labyrinths in stories were often places of confusion and peril. The sylvan serpent seemed to sense her unease. Not a labyrinth of stone and shadow, Starchild, but one woven from thought and memory. A place where the mind must be clear and the heart open. The weaver of whispers is an ancient spirit, a guardian of forgotten stories and unspoken truths. She holds a piece of the star song, a melody lost to the world, that Gaethe now seeks to reclaim. Pip chittered excitedly, patting Lyra's cheek again. He seemed to understand the urgency and importance of the quest. How do I find her? How do I navigate a labyrinth of dreams? Lyra asked. The sylvan serpent extended its head, and from its crown of woven twigs, a single iridescent leaf detached itself, shimmering with internal starlight. It floated gently down, landing in Lyra's outstretched palm. This is a starleaf. It will guide your intuition. In the labyrinth, trust not what you see with your eyes, but what you feel with your heart. The path will shift and change, reflecting your own thoughts. Hold the starleaf and listen to its quiet hum. It will lead you to the weaver. As the starleaf settled in her hand, a faint warmth spread through Lyra's fingers, and the hum of Gaethe seemed to deepen, connecting directly with the leaf's gentle pulse. It was a comforting, guiding presence. Go now, Starchild, the sylvan serpent urged, its luminous eyes conveying ancient wisdom. The weaver awaits, and the star song yearns to be sung once more. With a graceful dip of its head, the sylvan serpent slowly coiled back into the hollow of the ancient oak, its luminous eyes the last to fade, leaving Lyra and Pip bathed in the soft glow of the starleaf and the path of Lumina. The starglow path continued, now weaving deeper into the whispering woods. The trees grew closer, their branches forming a living archway, and the whispers grew more intricate, sounding almost like a chorus of soft, sighing voices. The air became thick with a gentle, shimmering mist, not cold, but warm and inviting, tasting faintly of honey and moonlight. Lyra clutched the starleaf, its warmth a constant reassurance in her palm. Pip sat on her shoulder, his little head tilted, listening intently to the forest's murmurs. The path itself seemed to respond to her thoughts, widening where she felt hesitant, narrowing where she was confident, always guiding her forward. Soon the whispering woods began to transform. The trees, while still ancient, took on a more ethereal quality. Their leaves seemed to ripple with all the colors of a sunset, even in the moonlit night. The ground beneath the starglow path softened into what felt like spun clouds, yielding with each step. The air grew heavier, not with mist, but with a palpable sense of dream. They had reached the entrance to the labyrinth of dreams. It wasn't a physical entrance, like a gate or a cave mouth, but a shimmering curtain of light, woven from countless strands of iridescent mist. As Lyra and Pip approached, the curtain parted, revealing not a winding corridor, but an expanse of swirling, ethereal landscapes. One moment, she was standing on a cloud made of fluffy pink cotton candy, with stars like gumdrops scattered across a vast, violet sky. The next, the scene shifted, and she was in a vast library, its shelves reaching endlessly into the heavens, filled with books bound in moonlight and starlight, their pages whispering forgotten tales. Then, it became a field of giant, luminous dandelions, whose seeds, when blown, drifted away as tiny, sparkling memories. This was the labyrinth of dreams. It wasn't designed to trap, but to test, to explore the landscape of the heart and mind. Lyra found herself walking through scenes that felt both familiar and utterly new. She saw glimpses of her own childhood, moments of laughter under the elder oak, the comfort of her grandmother's stories, the first time she had heard Gaethe. But these memories were interwoven with fantastical elements, her grandmother's knitting needles becoming weaving shuttles of starlight, the elder oak's branches sprouting luminous fruits. The challenge wasn't to find a single path, but to choose which dream path to follow. Each turn presented a new vista, a new memory, a new possibility. Some paths seemed inviting, others slightly unsettling, reflecting unspoken fears or longings. Pip whispered, feeling a slight disorientation as a path made of shimmering water appeared before them, leading towards a castle made of ice and whispers. Which way? Pip chittered, then gently nudged the starleaf in her hand. Its warmth intensified, and Lyra focused on its gentle hum. The hum seemed to pull her not towards the ice castle, but towards a path that opened into a vibrant, sun-drenched meadow, even though the labyrinth was bathed in dream night. It felt right. It felt hopeful. She stepped onto the meadow path. Immediately, the icy castle vanished, replaced by a grove of trees whose leaves were made of woven sunlight. Butterflies with wings like stained glass fluttered around them, leaving trails of sparkling dust. This felt like the right choice. As they journeyed deeper, Lyra learned to trust the starleaf and her own intuition. When a path of fleeting shadows appeared, tempting her with forgotten worries, the starleaf pulsed, guiding her towards a path of glowing crystalline flowers. When a path of glittering gold seemed to promise easy rewards, the starleaf's hum subtly shifted, leading her instead to a quiet, moss-covered stone circle that radiated peace. It was a journey of self-discovery, as much as a physical one. Lyra realized that the labyrinth wasn't trying to trick her, but to reveal her own inner landscape. Her fears, her hopes, her deepest desires, they all manifested as different paths. And Tifi, through the starleaf, was gently guiding her to trust her true self, the part that resonated with wonder and light. Finally, after what felt like an age of wandering through shifting dreams, the starleaf's hum grew strong and steady, vibrating through her whole arm. It led them to a clearing unlike any other. Here, the dream mist coalesced into shimmering threads of light, weaving themselves into intricate tapestries that hung suspended in the air. Each tapestry depicted a different story, a different memory, alive with movement and subtle light. In the center of this clearing sat a figure. She was ancient, her form almost translucent, woven from moonlight and wisps of dream mist. Her hair flowed around her like a silver river, and her eyes, though ancient, sparkled with endless curiosity. Her fingers, long and delicate, were constantly in motion, plucking at the shimmering threads of light that surrounded her, weaving them into new patterns, new stories. This was the Weaver of Whispers. She looked up as Lyra and Pip approached, a gentle smile gracing her lips. "Welcome, Star Child." Her voice was like the soft rustle of silk, barely a whisper yet clear as a bell. "I have been expecting you." The hum has grown louder in these halls of dream. Lyra held out the starleaf. "The Sylvan Serpent sent me. It said you hold a piece of the star song." The Weaver chuckled, a sound like dry leaves dancing in the wind. "Indeed, many pieces of many songs woven into the fabric of time. The star song, however, is unique. It is the melody of creation, the very essence of Hwav." She gestured around the clearing. "All these threads, all these stories, are but echoes of that grand star song. But the true melody, a specific sequence, was fragmented long ago, scattered to the winds of forgetfulness." She held out her own hand, and Lyra saw that her palm was etched with faint, glowing lines, like a miniature constellation. From these lines a single thread of pure shimmering light detached itself, hovering in the air between them. It glowed with an exquisite pulsating rhythm, and Lyra realized it was a melody, made visible. It was the first marker she had seen on the dream map, the starleaf symbol, now a luminous, singing thread. "This is the first true note, the seed song," the Weaver explained. "It is the melody of awakening of potential. It was lost when the world forgot how to listen to its own dreams. You, Star Child, with your open heart and ears that hear Kfaim, are destined to reclaim it." As the Weaver spoke, the luminous thread gently floated towards Lyra. It didn't enter her body, but instead wove itself around the starleaf in her hand, merging with its glow. Lyra felt a surge of warmth, a deepening of Ufi's hum within her, and suddenly, she heard the melody. It wasn't a sound from outside, but a pure, intricate tune that resonated within her mind, clear and beautiful. It was the sound of beginnings, of quiet power unfurling. "Hold this note close, Star Child," the Weaver advised, her eyes twinkling. "It will guide you to the next fragment. The path of Lumina does not end here. You must follow the spiral." She pointed with a long, translucent finger towards a new path that had appeared at the edge of the clearing. It wasn't the starglow path, but a shimmering, iridescent spiral of light that seemed to twist and turn into the very fabric of the labyrinth sky. "This spiral will lead you out of the labyrinth of dreams and to the Starsong Falls," the Weaver continued. "There, amidst the cascades of liquid starlight, lives the echoing seer. She guards the second fragment of the star song, the spiral harmony. But be warned, star child. The falls are beautiful, but their songs are many, and only those with a true heart can discern the melody that matters. Lyra felt a thrill of excitement and a touch of trepidation. She now carried a piece of the star song, a living melody within her. She was not just a listener, but a keeper. "Thank you, Weaver of Whispers," Lyra said, bowing slightly. The weaver smiled, her form shimmering. "Go forth, star child. Let your dreams be your guide, and your heart be your compass." The star song awaits its full chorus. With a final gentle nod, the weaver returned to her silent weaving, her delicate fingers dancing amongst the threads of light. Lyra turned, Pip nestled securely on her shoulder, and stepped onto the shimmering spiral path. The spiral path was unlike anything Lyra had encountered. It was not flat, but curved upwards and outwards like a celestial staircase, made of iridescent light that swirled with all the colors of a distant nebula. With each step, the labyrinth of dreams receded below them, its swirling landscapes shrinking into beautiful abstract patterns. The air grew thinner, clearer, and a soft melodic hum, different from Anthe, began to permeate the atmosphere. As they ascended, Lyra realized the hum was growing into a symphony. It was the sound of falling water, but water that sang. The spiral harmony, as the weaver had called it. Eventually, the spiral path culminated at a wide, glowing ledge. Before them, stretched out into the vast open night, was a sight that stole Lyra's breath. This was the Starsong Falls. Instead of water, cascades of liquid starlight poured from unseen heights, plunging into a vast shimmering lake below. The starlight wasn't just light, it was alive, flowing like a river of melted constellations. Each stream of falling starlight hummed with its own unique tune, creating an orchestra of celestial melodies. Some falls sang with deep, resonant chords, like the ancient slumber of stars. Others tinkled with light, playful arpeggios, like the birth of new galaxies. And still others resonated with long, soaring notes, like the journey of comets across the cosmos. The sound was overwhelming, beautiful, and slightly disorienting. Lyra felt the seed song, the first fragment of the star song she carried, pulse within her, trying to find its place amidst this grand chorus. Pip, usually so energetic, sat utterly still on her shoulder, his small head turning slowly, absorbing the incredible spectacle. The ledge they stood on was made of smooth, polished obsidian, reflecting the starlight in its depths. Luminous moss grew in intricate patterns along its edges, and tiny, crystalline flowers chimed softly in the spray of starlight that drifted from the falls. "The echoing seer," Lyra whispered, remembering the weaver's words. "She guards the spiral harmony." But where was she? Lyra scanned the vast expanse of the falls, the shimmering lake below, the distant, glowing cliffs from which the starlight poured. There was no one visible. Then, Pip stirred. He pointed his tiny finger towards one particular cascade of starlight, a fall that seemed slightly different from the others. While the other falls sang with distinct melodies, this one seemed to echo them, not just reflecting the sound, but weaving them together, creating complex, layered harmonies. It was a fall that didn't sing its own song, but the song, waft the songs. Lyra focused on that particular fall. As she did, the seed song within her stirred, a gentle warmth spreading from her chest. It seemed to resonate with the echoing harmonies, a soft countermelody weaving itself into the grand tapestry of sound. Slowly, carefully, Lyra walked along the obsidian ledge, following the starglow path that now led towards the base of that specific echoing cascade. As she drew closer, the spray of starlight became denser, cool and refreshing on her skin. At the very heart of the echoing falls, where the liquid starlight met the shimmering lake, Lyra saw a form begin to coalesce. It was ethereal, shimmering, almost entirely transparent, woven from the starlight itself. It was the figure of an old woman, her hair like spun silver, her face creased with lines of ancient wisdom, her eyes like pools of deep starlight. Her form was constantly shifting, flowing like the water, yet her gaze was steady and unwavering. This was the echoing seer. Her voice was like the softest whisper of the falls, a ripple of sound that seemed to come from everywhere at once. "Welcome, star child. I have listened for your coming through the ages. The hum of Cathy echoes strongly in your heart." Lyra felt a surge of courage. "I am Lyra. I seek the spiral harmony, the second fragment of the star song. The seer's starlit form seemed to shimmer with amusement. It is not something one seeks, star child. It is something one hears. The spiral harmony is the understanding of how all notes intertwine, how all lives connect. It is the rhythm of flow and return, of growth and change. She extended a hand, and Lyra saw that her palm was not etched like the weaver's, but seemed to hold a miniature, swirling galaxy within its depths. From this galaxy, a second thread of pure, vibrant light detached itself. This thread was not a straight line, but a perfect shimmering spiral, pulsating with a gentle, revolving rhythm. It glowed with all the colors of a cosmic dance, and Lyra knew it was the second marker from her dream map. The seed song within you, it yearns for its counterpart, the seer explained. But to truly receive the spiral harmony, you must first share the melody you carry. Lyra was momentarily confused. Share it? How? The seer's starlight eyes twinkled. With your voice, starchild. Sing the seed song. Let its awakening ring true amidst the echoes of the falls. Lyra hesitated. Oh? She had never sung alone, not truly. Her voice was small, accustomed to singing along with her grandmother's quiet lullabies. But the hum of Withy urged her on, and the seed song within her felt ready to blossom. Taking a deep breath, Lyra closed her eyes, focusing on the beautiful, intricate melody that resonated within her. She opened her mouth, and a quiet, clear note emerged. It was soft at first, almost lost in the grand chorus of the falls. But then, something miraculous happened. As Lyra sang, the seed song, the melody of awakening, seemed to gain strength. It didn't try to overpower the falls. Instead, it wove itself into them, finding harmonies with the various cascades, creating a new, beautiful counterpoint. The echoing falls themselves seemed to respond, their melodies softening, making space for Lyra's small, yet powerful, voice. Pip, silent and still, watched with wide eyes. Lyra sang the seed song through, from its quiet beginning to its gentle, hopeful end. When the last note faded, the entire star song falls seemed to hold its breath, a moment of profound quiet descending upon the vast expanse. Then, the spiral harmony, the shimmering thread held by the seer, detached itself completely. It floated gently towards Lyra, not merging with the starleaf like the seed song, but instead, it began to weave itself around Lyra's wrist, forming a delicate, luminous bracelet. As it settled, Lyra felt a new resonance within her. The seed song and the spiral harmony were now connected, two parts of a greater whole, vibrating in perfect accord within her being. She could feel the rhythm of flow, the interconnectedness of all things, in a way she never had before. You have done well, star child, the echoing seer whispered, her voice a ripple of starlight. You have not just received the spiral harmony, but you have understood its essence, that all creation is a song, and every voice has its place, weaving together to form a grander symphony. The seer gestured with her shimmering hand towards a new path that had opened behind the falls. It was not a path of light this time, but a dark, inviting entrance into what appeared to be a cave, but one that pulsed with a soft, internal glow. This was the Echoing Caves. The path of Lumina now leads into the Echoing Caves, the seer explained. There, amidst the resonant crystals and ancient carvings, lies the third marker, the rhythmic pulse, guarded by the stone speaker. He holds the knowledge of Hythy's deepest history, and the final fragment of the star song before its full chorus can be heard. Lyra looked at the dark, yet inviting, entrance. She now carried two parts of the star song, a growing warmth and understanding in her heart. The journey was unfolding, and with each step the magic of the world, and her own connection to it, deepened. Be mindful, star child, the seer cautioned, her starlight eyes gazing into Lyra's. The echoing caves hold great power, and great silence. To hear the rhythmic pulse you must learn to listen not with your ears, but with the very bones of the earth. With a final shimmering bow, the echoing seer began to dissolve back into the star-song falls, becoming one with the liquid starlight, her form fading into the endless echoing melodies. Lyra, with Pip on her shoulder and the spiral harmony shimmering on her wrist, turned towards the entrance to the echoing caves, ready for the next part of her journey. The hum of Audiobook resonated stronger than ever, a guiding force in the quiet, magical night. Lyra, with Pip still nestled on her shoulder, turned from the now silent Star Song Falls. The mist that had been the echoing seer still swirled faintly, carrying the last whispers of her wisdom. The entrance to the echoing caves loomed ahead, a jagged moor in the side of a great moss-covered cliff, darker than the deepest night, yet somehow inviting. It didn't seem to swallow the light, so much as simply ignore it. The hum of Ot resonated stronger now, not just in her ears, but deep within her chest, a steady, warm vibration that made her bones thrum in agreement. It felt less like a sound, and more like a feeling. A deep sense of belonging and rightness. The spiral harmony on her wrist pulsed with a soft internal glow, mirroring the rhythm of Kethige. "Ready, Pip?" she whispered, her voice feeling small against the vastness of the looming cave. Pip, ever her brave companion, chirped with an enthusiastic flicker of his tail, puffing out his chest. He scampered down her arm, pausing at her fingertips to give them a reassuring nuzzle before darting ahead, a tiny, courageous scout. Lyra took a deep breath, the air cool and faintly smelling of damp earth and ancient stone. She stepped forward, the entrance swallowing her easily, the ambient starlight fading behind her like a closing eyelid. Inside, the darkness was absolute, thicker than any night she had known. Her eyes, accustomed to the subtle glows of the magical forest, strained uselessly. She reached out, her hand finding the rough, cool surface of the cave wall. It felt alive, not with movement, but with a network of subtle vibrations, like the slow, deep pulse of a sleeping giant. "The bones of the earth," she murmured, remembering the seer's words. Her sight was useless here. Her hearing, too, was confused by the strange acoustics of the cave, where every whisper seemed to echo and twist back upon itself. Pip's tiny chirps were clearer now, no longer swallowed by the vastness outside, but seeming to rebound directly to her. She realized he was acting as her sonic guide, his calls bouncing off unseen obstacles, painting a map of the immediate surroundings in her mind. She closed her eyes, not to block out the darkness, but to focus her other senses. She pressed her palm flat against the cave wall, willing herself to feel, to listen with her skin, with her very core. The hum of Waiti intensified, guiding her attention. It was not a single dominant hum, but a symphony of countless tiny vibrations, each one a thread in a grand, intricate tapestry. The spiral harmony on her wrist began to glow more brightly, its intricate silverwork seeming to absorb the subtle tremors from the stone and translate them into a soft, visual pulse. She began to move, one hand always on the wall, her steps slow and deliberate. Pip darted around her feet, occasionally nudging her ankle to indicate a turn or a dip in the path. The air grew heavier, cooler, carrying the scent of deep earth and mineral-rich water. The cave narrowed, then widened, then narrowed again, a winding labyrinth of stone. Sometimes faint, ethereal whispers seemed to drift from the walls themselves, ancient voices speaking in languages long forgotten, or perhaps not languages at all, but the echoes of emotions, thoughts, even dreams that had been absorbed by the stone over eons. "Listen with your bones," the seer's voice echoed in her memory, clearer than the cave whispers. Lyra focused. She didn't try to decipher the whispers with her mind, but rather to eye feeling their resonance, their underlying vibration. Some felt heavy and sad, others light and fleeting, like a forgotten joy. She learned to distinguish the subtle difference between a true path and an illusory dead end by the ga-fili of the stone beneath her fingers, by the way the hum of Kiti resonated, or didn't, in a particular direction. The spiral harmony became her compass. When she reached out towards a dead end, its glow would dim slightly, or its pulse would become discordant. When she pointed towards the correct path, it would hum brighter, its light deepening to a rich, warm gold. It wasn't just reflecting one thing, it was guiding her eye towards it, acting as a translator for the silent language of the earth. After what felt like hours, a new scent drifted to her, fresh water. And then a new sound, faint but distinct, like a gentle lapping. The cave opened up into a vast circular chamber, so immense that Lyra felt like a tiny speck. Before her stretched a shimmering expanse of water, an underground lake reflecting the faint ethereal glow of phosphorescent mosses clinging to the cavern ceiling high above. This was the lake of muted voices. The water was utterly still, its surface like polished obsidian. But as Lyra approached its edge, she realized the seer's description was literal. Sound seemed to dissipate here. Her own footsteps, which had been audible moments ago, now barely registered. Pip's chirps, though still present, were strangely muffled, as if filtered through layers of velvet. The hum of Oiti was still strong within her, but its outer manifestation, the subtle vibrations from the stone, seemed to be absorbed by the lake's silent presence. "How do we cross this, Pip?" she whispered, her voice barely reaching her own ears. Pip, however, seemed undeterred. He scampered to the very edge of the water, peering into its depths. He then looked back at Lyra, tilting his head, and let out a series of very quiet, almost internal chirps, not directed at her, but into the water. Lyra knelt, placing a hand on the cool, damp stone beside the lake. The spiral harmony, which had been glowing steadily, now began to pulse in a new rhythmic pattern, different from the earth vibrations. It was a soft, undulating rhythm, like a gentle breath. She looked at Pip, then at the water, then at the spiral harmony. "A seer, said to listen with the bones of the earth, but also to hear with my own heart." This lake, she realized, wasn't about physical sound or vibration, but about inner resonance. The muted voices weren't gone. They simply required a different kind of listening. She closed her eyes again, placing both hands flat on the stone, letting the spiral harmony's pulse guide her. She focused on the internal hum of Huaiti, allowing it to fill her entirely. She let her mind quiet, pushing away her thoughts, her worries, her need to understand. She just was seen. And then, she felt it. Not a sound, not a vibration, but a series of faint, almost imperceptible ripples in the air, in the very fabric of the chamber. They were like echoes of dreams, whispers of forgotten songs. The faint memory of laughter and tears that had once resonated in this very spot, perhaps from beings who had stood here millennia ago. These were the muted voices not speaking Jai to her, but simply existing, waiting to be felt. She opened her eyes. The lake's surface, though still and dark, seemed to shimmer with these internal currents. She saw now, not with her eyes, but with a deeper sense, that there were faint, almost invisible pathways across the water, pathways made not of stone, but of solidified resonance of ancient echoes holding form. "Pip," she breathed, pointing to the faintest ripple she could discern, a path that stretched across the dark water towards a distant shimmering glow on the other side of the chamber. Pip seemed to see it too, or perhaps he felt it. He chirped excitedly, darting onto the first step of the invisible path. Lyra followed, placing her foot carefully onto the seemingly empty air. It held her. It felt solid, yet ethereal, like walking on solidified moonlight. The spiral harmony glowed like a beacon, illuminating the next step, then the next. They moved slowly, carefully, across the lake of muted voices. With each step, Lyra felt the faint emotional imprints of the past. A wave of profound sadness, then a fleeting moment of pure joy, then a deep, quiet sense of longing. She didn't let them overwhelm her, but simply acknowledged them, let them pass through her, like passing clouds. She understood now that these were not meant to distract, but to teach empathy, to remind her of the vast tapestry of life and emotion that had existed, and continued to exist, around her. Finally, they reached the far side. The glowing mosses here were brighter, painting the cavern walls with soft emerald light. The path led into a narrower passage, steeper now, winding upwards. The air grew warmer, almost electric, and the hum of Keethi within Lyra intensified to a joyful, soaring crescendo. They emerged into the heart of resonance. This was no ordinary cave chamber. It was a cathedral of light and sound. The walls were lined with colossal crystals, each one pulsing with its own internal light, sapphire, amethyst, emerald, ruby, casting kaleidoscopic reflections across the cavern. From the ceiling, delicate, crystalline stalactites hung like musical chimes, vibrating silently, each one contributing to the overwhelming, yet perfectly harmonious, symphony of Wathidi. The air itself shimmered, alive with visible frequencies, like heat haze but infinitely more beautiful, dancing with color and light. The hum of Wathidi was no longer just within Lyra. It filled the entire space, a palpable presence that resonated in her very bones, in every cell of her body. It was a sound so profound, so complete, that it transcended mere hearing. It was a feeling of absolute belonging, of perfect balance, of pure, unadulterated existence. In the very center of the chamber stood a massive spiraling pillar of pure light, seemingly composed of countless interwoven strands of iridescent energy. It pulsed and breathed with the rhythm of the entire universe, expanding and contracting with a slow, deliberate grace. This, Lyra knew, was the true manifestation of Waithe. K was not an object to be found, nor a song to be sung, but the fundamental vibration of all existence, the underlying harmony that wove together every star, every atom, every living thing. It was the silent, eternal lies of the universe, the affirmation of being. Lyra walked towards the spiraling pillar, her steps light, Pip trotting beside her, his fur shimmering with the reflected light. The spiral harmony on her wrist was now ablaze, glowing with an inner fire, its intricate patterns swirling and shifting like tiny galaxies. It had become more than a mere artifact. It was an extension of her own senses, a key tuned specifically to this universal frequency. She reached the base of the pillar of light, feeling the warmth radiating from it, the gentle tremor in the air. She lifted her hand, the spiral harmony pulsing like a living heart. She extended her fingers, not to touch the light, but to merge with its resonance. As her hand, adorned with the glowing spiral harmony, drew closer, the pillar of light seemed to reach out to meet her. A shimmering tendril of pure energy separated from the main column, gently wrapping itself around her wrist, engulfing the spiral harmony. A jolt, not of electricity but of pure understanding, surged through Lyra. It wasn't painful, but exhilarating, like every cell in her body suddenly awakening to its true purpose. She closed her eyes, and the world dissolved into an ocean of pure vibrational energy. She saw, not with her eyes, but with her entire being, the intricate dance of creation. She felt the slow, patient growth of a seed pushing through the earth, the joyous, soaring flight of a bird on the wind, the silent, majestic turning of distant stars. She felt the beat of every heart, the flow of every river, the whisper of every leaf. She understood the perfect, complex harmony that bound them all, a constant, underlying chord that resonated through all time and space. K was not a secret to be uncovered, but a presence to be acknowledged. It was the music that was always playing but which required a special kind of listening, a listening with the bones of the earth, with the heart of a child, with the soul of a seeker. She realized that she hadn't come to find a Gaifi, but to become one with it, to understand that it was not outside her but within her, always. The spiral harmony on her wrist wasn't just a tool, it was now a permanent conduit, a shimmering anchor to this universal resonance, allowing her to perceive and connect with Waithe whenever she chose. When Lyra opened her eyes again, the world was still bathed in the kaleidoscopic glow of the heart of resonance, but everything seemed sharper, more vibrant, more Galavi. The air itself hummed with 1,000 tiny melodies she had never noticed before. Pip sat patiently at her feet, looking up at her with wide, knowing eyes as if he too had shared in her experience. She felt changed, not physically, but deeply, intrinsically. A profound sense of peace settled within her, a quiet joy that resonated with the very core of her being. She no longer felt the need to speak, for she understood that the deepest truths were communicated through silent resonance. With a final reverent gaze at the spiraling pillar of light, Lyra turned to leave, Pip scampering ahead. They retraced their steps, but the journey back through the echoing caves was different. The muted voices of the lake now felt like friendly whispers, the ancient tremors in the walls like gentle greetings. She walked with a new certainty, guided not just by the spiral harmony, but by an internal compass that had been calibrated to the hum of Waithe. As they emerged from the dark maw of the cave into the soft twilight glow of the magical forest, Lyra gasped. The world outside seemed transformed. The leaves on the trees shimmered with 1,000 subtle hues she had never noticed. The wind rustling through the branches sang a complex, beautiful melody, each rustle a distinct note. The very ground beneath her feet pulsed with a gentle, steady rhythm, the heartbeat of the earth. She could hear it all. Not just with her ears but with every fiber of her being. She could hear the quiet growth of the roots beneath the soil, the silent, patient expansion of the flower buds, the distant, unseen flight of night moths. She could perceive the intricate, beautiful harmony that bound everything together, the constant, gentle hum of Gaithe underlying all existence. Pip, sensing her wonder, nudged her hand, then nuzzled into her neck. He chirped softly, a sound that now resonated with an incredible depth of understanding in Lyra's newly attuned senses. Lyra knew her journey wasn't truly over. It had just begun. She had not brought Waithe back to the world, for Waithe had always been there. She had simply learned how to listen. And with that listening came a profound connection, a quiet power, a gentle wisdom. She returned to her quiet life in the forest, but she was no longer just Lyra, the girl who loved to explore. She was Lyra, the listener. She could sense disharmony before it took root, could offer comfort with a silent touch that resonated with the universal hum. She helped the trees grow stronger, the stream flow clearer, the forest creatures live in greater peace, not through grand gestures but through her quiet, attuned presence, through her ability to hear the silent song of harmony that lived within everything. At night, as Lyra lay in her mossy bed, Pip curled softly on her chest, she would gaze up at the stars, and she would feel the hum of Gaidi, a gentle lullaby that resonated through the cosmos, through the earth, through her own heart. The spiral harmony, a faint, constant glow on her wrist, reminded her of the journey, of the echoing seer's wisdom, and of the profound, beautiful truth she had discovered. The world was an endless song, and Lyra, finally, knew how to listen. And in that listening she found her place, her purpose, and a peace deeper than any dream. And as the gentle hum of Oithi cradled her, Lyra drifted off to sleep, knowing that the magic of the world was always there, waiting to be heard.